Time for even more manga. This is like the 6th one of these that I've done, so I'm not even going to explain it, just dive right in. The first of the mangas I'd like to talk about today is another one by Nagabe, one of like the 2 that I haven't discussed already. I think at this point, the only 2 I haven't covered yet is Shularu, The Girl from the Other Side, and Love Stories from the Other Side. I actually intended to cover Love Stories from the Other Side for this video, but decided against it at the last minute. I'm getting really off topic. Anyway, the manga we're covering right now is simply called Eat. Eat is all about the wolf Lufria, an intro to a law professor at a local college. He's strict and terrifying, literally sending out the freshman Gula for being late to class on the first day. But he also has a secret that no one knows. He likes eating. Not eating himself, it's more like being eaten. He's into vor. He's just like really into vor. And not even soft vor and just like swallowing, but like the hard, Saturn eating his children type of vor. This isn't really a problem until he's bit by one of his students, Gula, the one I mentioned, and all of a sudden the 2 start sharing a secret. Like all of Nagabe's work, the first thing it excels at is the art. I don't know how many times I can say that his stuff occupies a beautiful space that's sort of fanciful but also a little realistic. And this also leans into the writing style where it takes these sort of fanciful scenarios and treats them very realistically with these characters. Lufria is totally aware that he's a professor who's getting way too involved with a student, a fact that is important to the manga's climax. And Gula himself is, I don't want to say a himbo, but he's definitely a man controlled by his appetite, both literal and sexual. The manga also has an interesting theme of the way our personalities and desires can be twisted into liking things we shouldn't. Like Gula, the herbivore, deciding to try meat one time and that leaving him with a hungry desire to explore what other meat tastes like. And then there's Lufria and how he was bitten by an ex? I honestly don't think it's ever explicitly stated, but that's certainly how the story treats him. Either way, the experience ended up leaving Lufria with a scar and a lingering desire to be eaten. I do think Lufria is my favorite character for the contrast between his normal, stony, evil demeanor and then his outlandish and strong reactions to the moment his kinks are met. Like, there's hot and bothered, and then there's being about to drool when you're not even the one eating anything. As a fair warning, I should tell you that the manga is very overt and not kid-friendly. It's not like Smell where anything explicit is really shown, but calling it implied is an understatement when we clearly see the aftermath. So if you decide to pick up Eat, you should be aware of that. The manga does have an official English translation, so you should try to pick it up if you like Nagabe stuff. This next manga is one I've had my eyes on for a while because it was up and available for sale on Amazon. The only problem was that it needed an English translation, which we got, and now I can finally scratch that itch. But before you do, let me tell you to like and subscribe and that I have a Ko-fi and Patreon. Supporters get access to an exclusive Discord server where they can yell at me and recommend me their favorite manga. It's called Me and the Robot. And just a word from behind the scenes, you have no idea how many times I had to read Me to know I'm using the right number of me's. It's a short, one-shot manga taking place in a world after humans have gone extinct and animal people have taken over. Me is a reporter working for the Abyssinian newspaper company, which has been having a rough spot after the rivals Manx Publishing has literally bought out their old office. The reason is that Manx Publishing has an author by the name of Robert Arl, whose books are the most popular in the world and is utterly dominating the market, pushing out everyone. But this author has never given an interview to anyone, prompting Me to go out and find the secret of Robert Arl and the further questions that are created. The thing about Me that actually stood out to me is the world because it has some fascinating stuff. Like, there's a whole world map that we're briefly shown, and it's a shame that we're only shown it because I wish we could visit more and see it. The moment relating to this that stuck out the most is when Me arrives at Ring Island, the Forbidden Lands. They note that it's also known as the dancing grounds of the gods due to the huge footsteps that are left in the dirt. Although, they also note that the explanation is just superstition, with the footsteps actually being from the ancient war machines the humans made. The fact that the robots are just here in this world is part of why I like it because they're described as these purely logical beings, only doing what's told. Of course, we learn that isn't quite the case, but the ending is one that sticks with me. It's reminiscent of that one story from Beast Complex, The Wolf and the Dog. The ending doesn't give you a straight answer and just asks you to linger on what you just read, which is probably why I like it so much. And it's that layer of ambiguity, giving you something to think about, that helps ensure the manga as a whole is something you remember. The hardest part about including or covering one-shots is their length, because I have to really squeeze them to talk about them for a decent amount of time. I mean, this one is only 45 pages, and I'd rather not make half this segment just me going over the plot in detail. I make these videos to inspire you to read these mangas for yourself after all. But even if it's only like 45 pages, this manga is only $2 off of Amazon, so I don't feel too bad about buying it. You also get the Japanese version of the manga when you buy it, so while I can't read it and it doesn't really do anything for me, I suppose it's nice to have. Also, the author, Hitoshi Origa, also did the Mega Man manga, which isn't relevant to anything, but I do find it funny, so I'm mentioning it. Since we talked about one-shot, let's talk about a second one-shot, so I suppose this would be our 1 second? With Hitoner, or maybe it's pronounced some different way, I don't really know. Hitoner takes place on an alien world filled with furry characters. Everything is fine until one day a spaceship arrives, carrying a human. Tonariko is part of a team of specialists assigned to watching and monitoring the human among doing tests. His physical characteristics, namely the lack of fur on most of his body, indicate intense proficiency at heat dissipation to increase the proficiency of their very large brain. And that is something concerning. The speed at which the human picks up their language, learns to write, and even their ability to read without glasses. Among their society's ability to travel to other solar systems all indicate that humans are more advanced than them. This manga is a one-shot that's super stuck with me when I read it literally ages ago. It's a fascinating read from a non-human perspective that actually asks us what are the physical differences between humans and furries and what does that mean. The art is also surprisingly good. It's different from the usual furry anime style, leaning more towards a sense of realism that really suits the manga. I think the protagonist of this manga is my favorite character. Granted, that's not hard when she's pretty much the only real character, but I digress. She starts out as very apprehensive of the human and even feels fear when she realizes that humans are more advanced than them. However, it's also the moment she spends with the human that makes her look past that. And I do have to appreciate how when someone accuses her of wanting to bone the human, she responds with, "Who I wanna fuck is my fucking business." Very based of you, tiny little cat. Very based. This one-shot is sadly not translated, so you'll have to find it on your own, but I do think it's worth it since the story was surprisingly good. It's a narrative that's almost perfectly designed for one-shot. It doesn't leave me wanting more, rather I'm entirely content with the story I got. Okay, so who here has heard of the series The Sacrificial Princess and the King of Beasts? It's a series I hold dear. I should defo cover it one of these days. The only reason I haven't is because that manga is actually quite long, but I did talk about the anime not too long ago. I also mentioned it was a shame that the sequel manga hasn't been translated, but guess what happened recently? It's now possible to read Sacrificial Princess and the King of Beast Heir, White Rabbit and the Prince of Beast. Wow, that name is long as fuck. A long time ago, known as another manga, the king of the beast country of Osmargo took a human woman for his wife. That being Leonhardt and Salafi, and they had a kid named Richard. But remember that whole thing about holy beasts from the OG series that was like a brief thing in the early arcs? Well, it's getting close to Richard's time to do that, and he better not fuck it up since tensions with the human country are still pretty high. No pressure though. Considering Richard really doesn't want to fail, he decides to go on a quest for self-improvement like some sort of Ronin or something. This goes about as well as you'd expect a 10-year-old or whatever little baby man running away from home to go. But he is saved by the wandering rabbit Ravi and his human companion Subaru. And just like that, Richard has found his new master. To be honest, I like this sequel series more than the first one, mostly because I think all the characters here are much stronger than the ones presented before. Richard, for his part, is a great protagonist. He's got this childlike earnestness to explore and try to do good, but he's also a child in the sense that he doesn't realize how hard that'll be, nor his own limits. Like, he sees an animal getting tortured by dolphins, so he jumps in to save them, only to realize after the fact that he just threw himself overboard. Ravi is your typical mentor figure for these kinds of stories. He's cold and standoffish, but genuinely a good person. He plays well off of Richard's more childish personality and Subaru's more mischievous one. It makes me like the dynamic between the three of them a lot, especially since the manga is all about Richard learning about the world. He's a sheltered little lordling who's learning firsthand about the kingdom he's supposed to one day rule. The little we have is genuinely great, like Richard being forced to climb a cliff, learning about the physical differences between his human and beast self. Or Richard helping an orphan collect junk to make money, learning more about what other people's families are like and what the world at large is like. Even as a sequel series, it serves to help fill the gaps in the original manga by fleshing out the world building. Only the first manga of this volume is out. What? Only the first volume of this manga is out, but I like it a whole lot. I genuinely wrote it wrong. This manga seems like it has a lot of potential, like I genuinely want to do a whole video about it once there's more for me to talk about. And now for the final manga, I ask if chat has heard of this little known game called Elden Ring. Yeah, Elden Ring, that grimdark fantasy game, has a manga. Multiple manga in fact, but did you know it also has a comedy manga? Now, I know some of you may be saying, Fuuri, Elden Ring obviously doesn't count as furry. And to that I say, Blight and Malekith did not fucking die for you to say that. Now I know you might say to that, Fuuri, this is obviously you running out of time or wanting to get that Night Rain SEO for views or whatever bullshit you have in your head. And to that I say, yeah. Shut up. As I was saying, Elden Ring's comedy manga is called Elden Ring, Road to the Erd Tree. It follows the Tarnished named Asio who's, not doing too well. He's horrifically dumb and has a bad habit of somehow ending up naked, and Melina isn't too kind to him either, but despite that, Asio is making his way through the lands between. This manga is almost entirely directed at fans of Elden Ring and has a very playful take on the series as a whole. It's not afraid to make people act out of character for a joke and to play up the rather small parts for the sake of funnies. For example, Blind is well-intentioned, but also a goddamn idiot with no sense of direction. No, you can't meet up with Asio in the middle of the ocean even if it's the shortest route because it's the middle of the goddamn ocean. And then there's the whole secret Ronnie fan club, which is the entire reason he's hunting Darwill. I actually think that's why I prefer this take on Melina to the one we get in the main game. I mean, well, aside from the fact that she's barely in the main game. She takes the role of the straight man for the entire story, seeming to be the only one who understands how stupid everyone around her is, and that makes her very, very mad. Blight's part in the manga has actually been greatly expanded from what we see in the main game. For one, he travels to Nokron with Asio and helps him get the win in the Radon Festival. From Patches to Bogart to... I forget her fucking name. I want to say Melina, but I know that's not it. It's Melania's daughter? Shit. Millicent! There we go. Which I suppose fits, since this fleshed out importance is better suited to a much more direct manga with a more solid narrative than FromSoft's usual way of telling stories. Malekath, or Garank really, also makes an appearance, being decidedly more doggy than he usually is. We haven't actually seen too much of Garank, but I imagine he'll get a bigger role as Asio starts finding the death route in Destined Death and also gets a fair Missoula. The manga has been going for some time now, since Asio is now heading to Volcano Manor at the time of recording this, with the legend of the dragon-slaying butt-cheek Tarnish growing more and more. If I had to compare this manga to anything, it would be an abridged series like Dragon Ball or maybe SAO. The jokes are mostly flanderizing certain aspects of characters, and as such, it's generally only funny to people who really know the subject material. Like someone who hasn't played Elden Ring won't really get how funny it is when Ronnie asks, "What the fuck did you do to piss off Muriel of all people?" And despite the comedic nature, it does have serious moments now and then, like when it deals with heavier topics included in the source material. Just like how Cell's death is played comedically but entirely straight, Radon's death goes out as a joke moment and a banger where we're supposed to feel an unironic emotion. I've kept up with this manga for years and I don't regret it, and that's why I totally recommend you do the same because I'm pretty sure you won't regret it either. And it's not hard to keep up with the series either, considering it does get official translations every month for a new chapter. And fuck it, I'll just throw the link to it in the description. Fuck it, whatever. Thank you for watching. Do be sure to like and subscribe while I get to our Patreon shoutouts. For our 3 stars, we have special thanks to Tron, Sky King 6480, Samara, Garen Phasor, Child Venomous, Harley Moon 78, The Good Old Days, Andrew Stassi. For 4 stars, you have McCoydes and Otterly Hall. Praise the advice. And for our super duper special 5-star shoutouts, we have Hodari Lion. Respect required ahead. Thank you for watching. Do be sure to like and subscribe. As always, this is Fuuri signing out.